You're live, it says. Good morning. Welcome to Brunch. I wasn't going to read from this book I've been reading for during the week, Sober on a Drunk Planet, Sean Alexander. But because we're going to start at the chapter 1. I just got through the intro. But I think there's some things in the chapter that are applicable. So I'm going to go ahead and read from it. Chapter 1, The Sober Glow. We've mentioned looking in the mirror a couple of times already. There's a good reason for that. Your reflection in the mirror is one of the first things you see every morning, and you keep on seeing it all day. I came to hate my reflection. Over 17 years of binge drinking, eating takeaways, drugging, and smoking cigarettes, it's no surprise I wasn't happy with my appearance. You are what you repeatedly do. My weight skyrocketed after university. Over time, I put on 51 kilograms, 112 pounds. My skin was terrible, and I never felt comfortable in my clothes. It doesn't matter how much you spend on designer labels if you're not content with the body inside them. Not only did I feel grotesque on the outside, internally, I was suffering as well. I had irritable bowel syndrome brought on by alcohol, cocaine, and cigarettes. Yet I managed to kid myself they weren't impacting my health. Boy, we can do that. Boy, mental gymnastics, we addicts are the best at that, aren't we? We get gold medals every day. Woo! My blood pressure was dangerously high, and my nose was constantly streaming. I was a mess both inside and out. And we've not even covered the turmoil that was going on with my mental health, another byproduct of being constantly disappointed by what I saw in the mirror. But alcohol and drugs helped me forget about it, one day at a time. You can't avoid that mirror, and you either like what you see or you don't. If you don't, well, that's chipping away constantly at your happiness and self-esteem. That's why we begin this section by talking about the health benefits of quitting drinking. They are countless, and you can start to enjoy them fast. Clearer skin, transformative weight loss, more muscle tone, and a massive boost in energy and clarity. Like I said, that's great if that's what happens. Man, if only. That's probably another reason that kept me scared sober, because I had wrecked myself after years and years of drinking to the point where I really wasn't even eating. All these health benefits are what we call the sober glow. That's a whole load of upgrades. And the best thing of all is that you can start to notice them within the first 30 days. If you've been drinking regularly without taking a prolonged break, you may not know what looking and feeling truly healthy can feel like. And yes, going out for a big one once or twice a week does count as regularly. Are you ready to find out how much better life can be? All right. Yeah, the things that we end up doing to our body and our mind, just everything about our active addiction isolates us. We just kind of know that we're separate from the rest of the society around us, and one thing that the addiction feeds in us is that irrational feeling of nobody understands. I'm the only one in the universe that knows what this is like, when it couldn't be farther from the truth. But we don't know that because we're in active addiction and we're ashamed, and we don't want to be around polite company if we can avoid it. And it's something that we have to contend with every bit as much as our drinking or our drug use, because it's a habit, and it feeds in. One thing feeds into another, into another, into another. They're just symbiotic partners or twins or what have you. I had some things I wanted to mention, so I wrote them down this time. The more we meet around a common goal, more interaction in the real world is less uncomfortable. Why? Because we're not carrying that secret. There's a thing we say in recovery that you're only as sick as your secrets, and those are all cliches, but they're all true. What are you going to do? Okay, so it's cliche. What if it's the truth? Yeah. And be cynical all day long, but it's not going to change that it's the truth. And that's what I have to confront myself with still a lot to this day. You know, when I kind of got into the heavy Christianity thing, the one with all the different thou shalt nots, and the rules are a little bit more strict and a little bit more it's all part of the culture. You adapt into that culture, and it's just a implied, inferred thing a lot of times. But getting full on into a cult, hi Christy, getting full on into a cult, that can be isolating as well, but you're isolating but not having to completely stop being around people. It's a way to isolate without having to be a hermit completely. The very fact that it's a language unto itself that only that cult speaks, that if you were to go outside in the regular world that's not part of your church or your cult and try to speak in the way that you speak with each other, the person you're speaking to outside of it is going to be completely lost. So when you go out into the world, you're isolated because you've got this cult speak constantly running around like a fish, like a goldfish in your head. And then you're in the fishbowl and you're going around and around with another goldfish. And so I really do believe that it was a way for me to kind of stay in my habit of isolating without drinking and killing myself, because that's what I was doing with alcohol, as I was killing myself. Let's see. Those were my things that I really wanted to talk about. I'm going to look at the chat real quick and see what we got going on here. I have to put my glasses on though. All right. Hello, Cosmic Christy. I told my people I broke. I can't use YouTube well. Addicts have their own language too. That is the truth. That is so true. It's a cult unto itself. Now that you mention it, that is so true. That is so true. Addicts have their own language, and that's. I think that's one thing that recovery does for us, is it does get us into where we can all come together, and we all know the language, and we're all about the same goal, as we're just trying to live and not do what we were doing, because we know we're destroying ourselves, we're destroying our relationships, we're destroying maybe our means to support ourselves, all of it, destroying our health. And so a lot of people may think that recovery looks unhealthy, but so what? Who cares if it's unhealthy? Yeah, it's unhealthy. What do you think we were in? We were in a very unhealthy relationship with what our addictive drug of choice. That's simple. And so, okay, next. There's this weird codependency that we develop in rehab, and it's okay. We've been in isolation for a very long time. It's just like, oh my God, you're starting to come out of the fog, and it's like, people, and they understand me. It's okay. Over time, we're going to get healthier. We're going to get to where we can interact in a way that's normal with the rest of you know society at large. But in the meantime, we just have to be in this little bubble because that's just what we have to do. Not all of us have the luxury of doing that, but one way or another, we have to be part of a little recovery bubble, and then eventually we fill up that bubble with talking, and then we can start to work our way outside of it and start to come into the wider world. And I just realized that I was finally able to start interacting with my friends on Facebook. Some people that I've known since I was a kid, some people I've known since I was a young adult kid, and I've just been so in that habit of isolating that I just it's just too easy to be there, to stay in that. And yeah, what else we got here? Figured out if I drank myself to death, it's kind of killing myself, but I don't actually want to die. Yeah, yeah. That's one thing that I when I was drinking and doing drugs, I had this thing kind of yakking at me all the time, looming, talking about how I wasn't going to live to see 30, and as it just made me want to drink heavier and do more and drugs and eventually it got to the point where I'm like, yeah, I've heard it. Come on, bring it on. And then after I started having a few days in recovery and the fog was starting to lift, I started realizing that I didn't have a death wish. I was living as though I had a death wish, and I actually thought that I had a death wish, and I did because I didn't see any other way out. I just didn't, and I didn't have the courage to do the thing. Um, but as that fog was starting to lift, and I'm starting to hear other people's stories, and I'm starting to realize that I really was there at death's door. I started realizing maybe I didn't want to die. You know what? As a little bit more time goes on, no, I don't really think I do want to die. you know, and then the day comes where you're starting to experience a little bit of clarity. It's like, wait a minute, I don't want to die. And so you start doing what you got to do to live. And you know what that is. You know, it's simply a matter of, you know, finding your bubble and staying in it until you're well enough to be out there, because it is a sickness. You know, that's something that they say in recovery. Alcoholism and drug addiction is a disease, and I will nod and assent to that, but that's the thing I've been having a little bit of trouble wrapping my brain and myself around, is it being a disease. I can kind of deal with it being a sickness. I fully know and fully understand. And I'm wondering if that's just, at the time when AA was forming all this, and the doctor did talk about the phenomenon of alcohol addiction, and how it's like the man who's lost a leg. We have simply lost our ability to choose whether or not we drink. And and that's where it first came about as a disease, because at that time the world knew that a serious drunk, a serious alcoholic, was a very, very sick person. And And so to say it's a sickness, you're just kind of falling into that whole stereotype in the world around you at that time. We're talking the 40s and 50s. Um, now it's we look at these things differently now because we've had all these generations of watching people suffer and watching people get clean and watching people thrive, watching people not thrive when they don't recover, when they don't stay in the bubble and do what they need to do to stay alive and get healthy. Let's see here. When I was in the hospital in detox, I got told recovery needs to be selfish. It does. It does. And you need to be around selfish people. We're the only ones who are going to be tolerant to what you're going through, is those of us who are in recovery. There's no way we can expect somebody who's never been through it to be to have the same kind of tolerance and understanding and, you know, uh, desire to help us, be able to stand on our own 2 feet. It's just, it's why these recovery programs do, for the most part, work. They don't work for everybody, but they do, for the most part, work. And I feel like as many flavors of recovery groups as we can have, let's have them, because not everything is going to be identifiable with everybody. And yeah, it's okay to be in your bubble for a little while, as long as it takes. As long as it takes. Is that helping any? Is anything I'm saying helping any? Making sense? And that's another thing we allow ourselves in recovery, and we give each other that allowance, is that allowance of being selfish. Your recovery comes first. And again, another cliche, but it's not, because it's truth. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Recovery has to be first. It has to be your sole focus if necessary. And usually when we've gotten to the point where we need recovery, it's necessary. Good morning, Jet. I'll be out there in a second, baby. I'll have my carrot with me. Did you get out? You didn't, did you? No, you didn't. You clever little beast. You didn't this time. I love that little donkey. He's a fun little guy to have around. That's true. Recovery is not linear. That is the truth. Well, Christy, do you feel like you've had a meeting? Because if you do, I'm calling it, and we can meet back on the phone and keep talking if you'd like. You don't have to. This is a lot right now. I know. Everything's a lot right now. Is it okay if we close? Had a good reason to break, but I can make any excuse I needed. But today was bad. Yeah. You're going to have bad days. We all do. So you got to have a plan in place for when those bad days do hit, because they will hit. I'm so glad, Christy. I'm glad. Okay. Sounds fine. All right. Well, let's just pause, have a moment of silence for the person who's still suffering in active addiction. And if that's yourself, have a moment of silence for yourself. And also the ones we've loved and lost. And maybe you want to repeat this with me. I forgive myself. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, courage to change things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Thank you, Christy. Sleep well, rest well, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.